Good evening, all. How are you? You okay?
Good evening.
Good, good. Just going to wait for a few people to come in. Okay, sorry, I just got a message through. Just having a quick read of it. Yeah, so we're just going to wait for it to get out there, get a few people starting to watch, and then we'll go on with the show. Sorry about this. I'm just going to share it out. Sorry about this. I'm just going to share it out. Here we go. Right. There we go. Right.
You would think there was an automatic way for the software to do it if you gave it the links, actually, but obviously
That would be good, but because LSS has got so many groups and part of a lot of people, it's quite hard to do. Right, so let's introduce ourselves. What we're going to do, we can introduce ourselves. My name's Martin Alley. I'm the founder of Lincoln Spirit Seekers. We've got tonight Joe Vitale. We're going to introduce ourselves, going on from Wendy, then down to Joe, and then to Bob, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was sharing out the page. Hi, I'm Wendy, and I have about 35 years working in the psychic medium area. I've been working with Martin now for quite a while. I'm sure he gets fed up of me texting him all the time.
No. I bet you get
it's such a nice place to be right now because of the fact that we don't take any bullying and we don't gang up on people, which is quite a nice place to be at right now. And I'll introduce Joe. Joe, if you'd like to
introduce yourself, mate.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. So I'm Joe Vitale. Nothing special. So I've been a paranormal investigator for 30 years on and off. Also a musician, love making music. Geez, what else? Well, I really hate talking about myself, to be honest. Filmmaker. And recently, the HARRISVILLE Haunting, the REAL Conjuring House, picked up 22 awards, film awards, which is awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised too.
Really good,
I'm part of C First Midwest Paranormal, also PRU Case Files, and I investigate on my own. So I don't know what more there is.
Many talents.
Bob?
I'm Bob Sharp. As anybody who's watched these and now get to know me, I keep calling myself the baby of the family. I can't keep calling me that self forever. I come to more of a technical background and an interest in all things paranormal, from UFOs to Bigfoot to skinwalkers to be fair, absolutely anything that's out of the ordinary and that's mysterious or people perceive as mysterious. I just see the world differently, I think, than a lot of people, but then I'm beginning to discover there's an awful lot of people that are similar in that fashion as well. Like to think I bring a bit of technical knowledge to what we do, LSS does, and I'm looking forward to, looking at it, because I've always been quite skeptical, but I'm not so sure. But, I'm looking forward to what comes in the future and what we end up doing, and also meeting really nice people like Joe. Looking forward to this.
Pretty cool. So how long have you been in the paranormal then, Joe?
30 years. There have been a couple of years where I was like, break time, take a hiatus, either family or personal. But it's been been a hell of a ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, World of Paranormal is full of rides, and it's got its ups, it's got its downs, and there's times when you do have to stand back and have a bit of a breather. I'm okay. I'll come back now.
Yeah, it's I try to be careful too. Usually around this time of year, I kind of just take a break because I do travel quite a bit to different locations, and I don't want to get burned out. You know, you get burned out on something, then
Yeah.
you can't really put 100% into it. Especially when you travel like I do. I know there's others out there who do travel like I do. That traveling, it can really just wear you down. I have traveled out to like I'm in Tennessee, on the east side of Tennessee. I have been to Rhode Island, New York. Um, I have been to Georgia, Alabama, Vegas, California. Uh, the last trip I did.
Just going out on investigations on all these places.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, right, that's totally cool. I'd just like to say hi to Popeye. I believe he's from South Africa.
Yeah.
Joining us.
I was about to ask you, Joe, if there's anywhere, because obviously you've toured America quite a lot, but is there anywhere you'd like to go? What's first place you would pick if you could go anywhere around the world? What comes to mind that you've... I've dropped you on it, that one.
That's tough because there's a lot of places around the world that I'd love to go to.
Yeah.
Definitely, UK, Ireland. I'd love to go to Egypt.
Well, that'd be lovely.
Spain.
Yeah.
There's places out in Mexico that I'd love to check out, although I don't think they allow. Well, last I knew, they didn't allow people to go on the Island of Dolls or whatever it is. But,
yeah, we discussed that, didn't we, a while ago? Yeah.
Things only allowed during the day at the moment.
Yeah. I always think places like I can never pronounce this, so I'm going to ruin this, like Teotihuacan and places like that would be amazing. Apart from amazing to visit, just amazing to actually, spend at least 24 hours there and spend the night and see what you can get and what comes up, with them steeped in so much history and everything. But we've got places like that here ourselves, so...
I don't know what your name is, Popeye, but South Africa would be somewhere very interesting to go and investigate because it's got a lot of history there. And it'd be something that would, would take our fancy. It'd be very knowledgeable to be able to go there one day.
Yeah.
There was some interrupting, just answering Popeye, whatever your name is.
I thought Popeye was easier just to go with.
What's the best experience you've had in the paranormal?
Well, it depends on what you define as best. Either best could be overall positive or negative when it comes to investigating.
What's the best piece of evidence you've caught?
So there's a couple, one of which is in the documentary, the Harrisville Haunting. I don't want to say what that is. People have to go and check it out. Actually, there's two things that had happened. Unfortunately, I will say that there was something that I had seen, and when we went back to look at security cameras, conveniently, the camera at that point in time glitched, and it did not glitch anytime before that, and even after that, it was fine.
We've seen that on a few things, yeah.
Let's see. I have seen, which is rare, but to see it twice is really rare. Yeah. I have seen a doppelganger. I've always heard people say, "Oh, I've seen a doppelganger," and I'm kind of like, it's not that I don't believe them. I've never seen it. I'm like, I don't know if I really buy into this.
I don't know what a doppelganger is. Would you like to explain it, Joe?
Basically, it is something that mimics a person or an animal. Like it's basically a double of somebody. Is basically what that is. Just to try to keep it simple. And I wasn't the only one who witnessed. The first time I seen it, I was not the only person who witnessed this. There was another investigator with me, Gary Fisher. He's from See First Paranormal, the Midwest team. We were at Hales Bar Dam, and we were just going into Hales Bar Dam, and there's this little round table to the side that we sat our gear on, and I looked up. I seen something in the corner of my eye, and well, one of the I guess the tour guides or whatever walked past us. Whatever, no big deal. I didn't think anything of it at the time.
Okay.
Only to find out that he never stepped foot inside. He was still outside.
Wow.
So
Wow.
what happened was, Gary and I both seen this, and he walked down the tunnel. Everybody else walks in. They're like, "Oh, we hear somebody down there." And Gary's like, "Well, Jeff just walked down there," and they're shining their flashlights down the tunnel. They're like, "There's nobody down there." We're like, "Dude," Gary's like, "BS." And Jeff just went down there. There was another guy named Jeff who was also like the tour guide or whatever for the place, and he says, "I'm right here." We're like, "No, not you, the other Jeff." He was like, "The other Jeff is outside," and in comes the other Jeff. And Gary and I just looked at each other. Like, what just happened? There was no way. There's no way. I've even tried it. Even running, there was no way that I could get from where we seen this thing come in from and out. But you have to go down a tunnel. You got a couple of rooms you have to go through. Then you have the main building you got to walk through. On top of that, the main gate for the main part of the building, it's locked. It's all fenced up. He's got to unlock that, relock it, and then go across the parking lot. That's not happening. Not that fast. Sorry. Yeah. So, and that was the first time I had ever seen anything like that. And that was the first time I actually investigated Hales. I had been there before, but never investigated. So that was pretty wild. And I thought about hitting record on my camera. I'm like, no, because the following day we were going to another location. And so I was just trying to conserve my memory cards for my camera. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I would have hit record. But if I did hit record, would I have experienced that? Would I have been able to capture that? I don't know. The second time I seen something like that was at the Monroe House. I was there supposed to have it for 2 nights. I had a friend of mine, Eric Connor, with me. We investigated. It was pretty active. He ended up going home, so I had the place to myself.
Cool.
When he left early in the morning, I went, got something to eat, came back, lay down on the couch to sleep, get ready for the night. I heard banging sounds. I'm like, I thought at first Eric forgot something. He's banging on the door, wanting in. But I realized the banging's coming up from over my head. And I'm like, is Eddie here? Eddie's the owner. Like, working on something? Like, that was what I was thinking. But Eddie wouldn't do that. Like, if he was to come in, he'd let you know, hey, I'm here. I'm going to be doing some work. Okay, cool. But I went upstairs to go check it out, and there was nothing. I went to go pee, and I come out of the bathroom and walk down the hall, and something caught the corner of my eye, and I looked down the short hallway that leads into what we call the Ouija board room. And I saw somebody, the back of somebody that I knew for about a split second. And I just stood there. Now, before I even seen that, I was hit with the smell of that lotion, cucumber melon or whatever it is. And I thought that was kind of strange. But then I seen that, and I'm like, did I seriously just see that? Now, I'm tired. I'll admit that. I was sleep deprived. And I wanted to go into that room, but I'm like, I don't have any equipment on me. So I ran downstairs to go grab cameras and a digital recorder, but I was met with a real nasty smell. It was bad.
What would you class the smell like?
It sounded like it had a sulfurous, rotting meat type of smell to it.
Okay.
And it was actually so strong that it ended up making me sick. Now, the only functioning bathroom in the house is upstairs. I wasn't making it upstairs. So I literally ran out the house, went as far back into the yard as I could, and let out my McDonald's.
I think I would have kept running at that point.
So I waited outside for a few minutes. I did go back in the house, and the house, like, it did not feel good. I literally felt like I was walking into a place where nobody liked me. Like, I could just feel that. And
Someone's trying to get rid of you.
yeah, and I went back outside, and I'm like, I was just like, what happened? So I called up a friend of mine, told him what had happened. Like, we know you have balls of steel, dude, but you should probably leave because now it's whatever's there is targeting you. There's more to the conversation, but I went back in the house.
Hey, Matt.
It still had that feeling.
Yeah.
And I was like, I probably shouldn't stay. I got in my car because I was sitting in my car. It was cold. It was like what 3 or 4 years ago this year or something like that.
Hey.
My left eye was just bloodshot. It was bad.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I should probably leave. So I ended up going on so to get there from where I'm at is 8 hours. I drove 8 hours home on something like maybe 30 minutes of sleep.
Well,
Yeah.
the adrenaline.
Well, I know I fell asleep at a red light for a couple seconds, but I made it home.
Wow.
Let's see. I have captured a really tall shadow person at Hales. I didn't even know it was there. It wasn't until I went back and reviewed. We knew something was there. Like, we could just tell it was really dark in this one spot.
Thing.
Yeah. It was just, we knew something was there. Now, I got lucky though when I went and reviewed because I was watching, and I was actually going to get up and get something to drink or something, and something had caught my eye, and I'm like, what was that? And I'm thinking probably nothing, but I went back anyways, and I'm like, holy crap. I captured like a really big shadow person, and you can see it walking.
Wow.
Like, it was weird. I did show that to Amy and Adam from Kindred Spirits. I did show them that footage because they came out there and they did an episode. I was a part of that episode for, I don't know, 18 seconds or whatever. We make a joke about it. But some of the things that they ended up capturing in that episode were things that we have, not just me, but others have experienced there as well. So I'm trying to think of some other cool things that was captured. Monroe House again.
What made you want to do the investigation at the Harrisville, the Conjuring House?
So growing up, I guess you could kind of say I was somewhat spoon-fed, like Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, I did grow up in a house that was haunted. There was something very nasty there. But for some reason, I don't know why, we always watch these shows on ghosts and such. I don't know. I don't even know what we were thinking at that point in time. It's like, oh, our place has got like this horrific evil thing in here. Hey, let's watch these paranormal like little shows, which only came on seasonal anyways. It was, during Halloween when they'd feature like Ed and Lorraine Warren and Hans Holder and all these others. And I'll get to that in a sec, but it wasn't something that getting into investigating was something that I did not want to do to begin with. I wanted to stay away from it. But I've always heard about the Conjuring House, and through Ed and Lorraine Warren, watching them on TV, and sometimes they would be on the radio and it would get played. It would be like a pre-recorded thing, anyways, that would get played. But yeah, it's kind of grew up on that a little bit. But what happened was the Conjuring House had always been on my bucket list as well as Matt's. Cool. And a mutual friend told me, "Hey, I'm going to be investigating the Conjuring House," and I'm like, "Are you sure it's the actual Conjuring House? Because they don't let anybody, in there." It's like, "No, there's new owners, and they're letting people investigate." Well, Matt found out the same. And I was actually on the phone with somebody else. I'm like, "I want to go film there. I want to film a documentary."
I want that place. Yeah, I get that.
I want to jump on that. And Matt had the same idea.
Definitely, bro. Definitely. If I was there, I'd be like, "Yep, let's do it."
Yeah,
So, great
Yeah,
on it.
absolutely.
Yeah, so things just kind of fell in place. Now, because I know a lot of the history of like the Conjuring. Well, specifically the things that Ed and Lorraine Warren
Yeah,
have
like in
investigated.
1971, when Roger and Carolyn moved into into the
Yeah.
house in 1971.
Right.
And they moved in there with their 5 daughters, and they didn't realise what they was going into, really.
Right. So I knew that there were other investigators. I've known about these other investigators for a very, very long time. Keith and Carl Johnson. They were actually the first to go in there and try to help the family before the Warrens.
Okay, cool.
So I'm like, Keith and Carl Johnson, they were the first to go in there to investigate, and then some other. We tried to get Tony Sparta, but he never responded back, because it would have been cool to be able to talk to him, because unfortunately Ed and Lorraine Warren, they're not with us. And I know Ed and Lorraine Warren. I know people have different feelings about Ed and Lorraine Warren, but at the end of the day, they did put the paranormal in the spotlight. They were at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
At a time when the world didn't believe, really, that it was all hush, hush.
Right. So everything just kind of fell into place. It was like it was just meant to happen. Now Matt wanted to bring his team in to be a part of it. His team couldn't do it, so we figured, hey, let's bring in Eric and Billy. Billy's great at interviewing. We can have him do the interviews and, of course, investigate. And Eric, he's high energy.
Sorry for interrupting. Just going to say hi to Matt. Matt's just nipped on. Yeah.
I can't even see Matt in here. Is he in here?
Yeah.
He's on the screen.
Weirdly enough, it's just appeared as you mentioned his name. It's like you knew.
Oh, there he is. Okay, I see it.
Yeah.
So, what happened, I didn't even expect. I don't want to give too much away the documentary, but honestly, I can say that we figured that Eric, out of all of us, because of his energy, and he's a full-on believer. Like, there's no convincing him otherwise. And then that's not to say anything negative about how he feels about the paranormal. If he's all in, he's all in. Nothing wrong with that. But we figured he would end up getting probably more affected or have more of the experiences, and that wasn't the case at all. So I was a little surprised about that. We had the whole story with Bathsheba Sherman being a witch and things like that. We covered that a little bit. I mean, it's really no secret now. Bathsheba wasn't a witch. She was accused of murdering or allegedly murdering a baby or something.
Yeah.
And no, she got her name dragged through the mud, and that is something that I see happening quite a bit with certain locations, where you go to these locations and people say these things about people from the past who are no longer living, who can't defend themselves. Say, oh, well, this person, this is what this person did, and now they're the ghost of this place. And I'll go back and I'll do proper research and find out otherwise. And that does happen a lot, unfortunately. And that's kind of one of my pet peeves with the paranormal. I have a few, but one of them is don't rely on other people's research. I see so many investigators out there claiming that they're doing research and being proper about it, but they're really only researching what other people have put out there.
Yeah.
There's a location in Georgia. I'll try to make this quick, but there's a location in Georgia where, we were told that a lady was a witch, and there was some evil doctor who did horrible things to patients who lived in this location, and it was just this big story. And the guy who actually owned the place, he wouldn't talk too much about it, which I thought was kind of odd. But the caretaker, he was more than willing to share information, and he was all about it. He showed me a picture of 3 witches and pointed out one of the witches being one of the ladies that lived there. And I was like, wow, what they were wearing is very stereotypical of what you would think of a witch. It just didn't seem right. Right. So anyhow, story was she was a witch. She got hung. Apparently people claimed that she put a curse or something like that. And with this curse, it was killing infants. So yeah, they hung her. It kept happening. And then they claimed that her sister was possessed by the spirit of the witch, so they hung her. Long story short, and none of that actually happened. I went back and I researched and I looked at everything. Now, with the one lady who was first accused of being a witch, I couldn't find a death certificate or anything like that on her. But I did find something on her sister, and her sister, she had something going on in her stomach. I don't remember what it was, but it ultimately killed her. So here, you have people dragging people's names through the mud, and for what? To sensationalize a location, to get more people out there. People have also said this location was used as an orphanage. It was designated to be used as an orphanage, and we got to hear the horrific stories that happened to the children at this orphanage, but it was never an orphanage. It was never opened up as an orphanage. Never happened.
Okay. Because it's also been known, like, there was like a lot of children there. There was like a male spirit that was an evil spirit that used to attack the youngsters. Is that...
I honestly, I don't remember the whole story. Two of the people that I was working with, they were supposed to do research, and not necessarily their fault, but kind of their fault. They were only going by what other people were saying, and what the caretaker was saying, and like it was all just. I'm just gonna say it. It was made up. It was a lie.
Yeah.
It probably makes it more. Yeah.
Right.
There's a very, very famous TV show whose name I won't mention, but I remember reading not so long ago about how their researchers go in there and ask people about these locations and stuff. And I think 2 of the researchers had completely got the story wrong, but it was quite interesting because when the show was filmed, some stuff came up and they contacted certain spirits and stuff, and the spirits told them this, that, and the other. But unfortunately, what the spirit said wasn't right because it people knew it. It's kept quiet a little bit, but it's easy to find if you know where to look. And obviously, I like to keep professionals, but so I won't mention what show it was. But yeah, there's a couple of times like that. These people get found out like that, and it's sometimes this whole thing about research. Martin and Wendy know I'm sometimes not a big fan of it because when you go in blind, at least you know what you've got, and you're never influenced by something.
I went in blind that. Yeah. I went in blind that time with you, Bob, and Martin.
Yeah. Yeah, when you did. It was a lot of influence that night. You changed a lot that went on there, Wendy.
With TV shows, they pick a story. They find the most interesting story about the location, and that's
Yeah.
what they go with. Of course, they don't have time to investigate all of the stories, so they got to pick the most interesting one, the one that they think would be more entertaining
Right,
for
pleaser.
television.
Yeah.
So, like for me, and I don't mean anything bad by this. I understand, I get it, but when Kindred Spirits, when they went to Hales Bar Dam, I told them, and I even had documentation showing that there was never a curse put on that land. That basically what happened was um, there was a treaty going on, and an individual did not like the treaty, and basically he was threatening to kill anybody that came his way or he stumbled upon. That's all it was.
Mm.
And they turned it into a curse. And even though I investigated the place many times, even by myself, um, I was kind of taken back because it was mentioned. Uh, Amy said, "I'll never forget the look of fear in Joe's eyes," and I'm like, "What?" I wasn't gonna watch that episode. I like, whatever. It's on TV, cool. I'll promote it. But I had a couple of people come to me with that clip, and I'm like, "You won't believe what they said, about you." And then I see that, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
So there's
Wow.
you warning them and telling the truth,
Yeah.
and then they say that about you.
Yeah, I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, I'm fearless when it comes to the paranormal. I mean, I couldn't understand that.
That's like
Um,
Candice that we had on, isn't it? With the I forgot the name now on the program, but it was one of those that's dramatizes stuff, and they totally and utterly over dramatized a bit with spiders. I mean, they did have a problem with spiders in this place, but the TV
No,
show
it's
itself,
bad.
I've watched the flip shit. I've watched it since, and oh my god, talk about over dramatized.
Yeah.
I get it's dramatized, but wow.
yeah,
It
and
gives people the wrong idea.
right, and look, I understand the whole aspect of production, TV, and things like that. You got to have the viewers. You got to have advertisement and things like that. But it was just I was just kind of like, why would they do that to me? Like
Yeah,
I couldn't
must not.
understand it. Um, but I mean, I can say when I was there, and I was there the whole time that they were filming, I did not see them faking anything. I didn't see them over dramatize anything. In fact, some of the things that I told them that I had experienced, they experienced. Uh, so I mean, and that was pretty cool. They did capture quite a bit, but not all of it made it on TV.
Okay.
My understanding is that they actually captured a full-bodied apparition,
Oh, that was pretty
but
cool.
it never
Yeah,
made it on TV.
I wonder why. That would have been really interesting to see that.
Yeah, I mean, these are,
Yeah.
from what I've heard, it's quite a regular practice that some of the really good bits that are
Yeah.
fantastic evidence don't make it onto
I
telly.
know there were two weeks ago when we had David, I'm going to get these wrong, Craig Aaron's and David
Yeah.
Espinosa on. They said that they were filming for that Evil Down the Street, and they had to do a bit that was filmed in like a basement or something, and they had a location that was a basement. And I meant to ask them this, or at least ask one of them afterwards. I'm actually going to do it. They said, but when they went to this location, it was already, I think, a little bit renowned for being haunted and stuff. And when they were doing test footage, raw footage, practice and everything, they got orbs and all sorts. And I'm thinking to myself, it'd be interesting. I meant to ask them, it'd be interesting to see that actually. When you actually set something up and you get stuff, I'm going to say, to be honest with you, do you ever get that like that anyway, Joe? When you've been setting up cameras, working things out, and you think, well, hang on a minute, we've got something here, and you've had to sort of like film quickly, or things that you've never shown anybody else, or
So, well, I mean, this happens quite a bit to me. I get to a location trying to set up, and things are happening. It's like, oh, I missed it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that definitely did happen when we were at the Conjuring House. I was in the bathroom. I was walking out of the bathroom, and I heard the child in an asking tone say, "Daddy." Now, earlier, not that long earlier, uh, Bill was on the phone with his daughter, helping her with homework,
Oh,
and she was on speakerphone. Uh, so when I came out of the bathroom, I was expecting Bill to be on the phone talking with his daughter.
Wow.
Everybody was outside, so I'm like, okay. So I go outside. I'm like, anybody come in here? Like, Bill, were you talking to your daughter? And I told him what I heard.
EVP recorder set up.
And I mean that happens. Even some of the things that didn't make it into the documentary, one of the interviews that we did, I heard it first. It sounded like a child's voice, and then it happened again, but it was a little louder. But that time, Matt and I both heard it, and that was during the interview. It was picked up on a digital recorder. The problem is that it wasn't loud enough; it wouldn't translate well, and that's a problem with a lot of EVPs is that they don't really translate all that well when you're trying to get it out there, like in video form, like for YouTube or a network or whatever. But I mean, yeah, that happens quite a bit. Like the whole doppelganger thing. Should I hit record? No, I'm not going to hit record. And then that happens.
What's your favorite equipment to build when you go out on investigation?
So I'm not big on using a lot of paranormal gear. I like a camera and a good digital recorder. I don't like using. I will use them. But I don't like using them all that much, like the cheaper recorders. I actually have one right over here. I can grab here real quick. Hang on. So I'm not a huge fan of using these type of recorders. The quality's terrible. You can think you're hearing an EVP when it's really not. We like to use nicer recorders. But a lot of people, they like using these little recorders because they think, they're getting a lot of EVPs, and it's through like the whole, I call it digital white noise. And that's why they're getting more EVPs. Okay, so I get that. I understand that. But again, trying to figure out if something is actually an EVP, even if it's faint. I mean, if it's clear as day and it's loud, then of course, yeah, hey, that's something. But there's a lot of sounds that can sound like a human voice, right? Even holding a digital recorder in your hand. Like I'll watch people use these little cheap recorders, and they're holding them in their hand, and they may not know it at the time, but you're moving around. And you are making a little bit of noise, and these things will pick up on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, it can come across as an EVP.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I tell people, if you're going to use cheap recorders like this, set it down. Just set it down, walk away from it, and do your EVP recordings that way. That's what I use, a digital recorder and a cam. If that was the only thing that I could bring with me, those are the two pieces of equipment. I do not trust REM pods or all the other gadgets out there. And the reason for that is one, there are all kinds of things that can set a REM pod off. A lot of people are unaware of what can set those things off. They're expensive. They're overpriced. You can literally buy the electronics that go into a REM pod for like $15 on Amazon, and you can put one together yourself.
Yeah.
A REM pod.
Yeah.
And there's somebody, Kenny Biddle. He was in the documentary. He's got some good videos on how these things are made, and a lot of other things as well. I'm not a fan of the SLS camera. I'm a little baffled as to why people use the SLS camera. There's honestly nothing special about it. It's just, it is a night vision camera that can sense depth, and it can only pick up on solid objects. So when people say, "Look, I have a stick figure on my SLS camera,"
Yeah.
it's like, well, your normal camera should
Yeah.
be able to see it. We should be able to see this or something, but we're
I
not.
mentioned that
Or
on this
feel it.
before, but I'd mentioned it before when they were having to. I totally discovered by accident. It was only reading and it was only sort of like researching different things and just understanding how things work and stuff. And I discovered that I don't know if it was somebody was looking at it and somebody discovered that when they were the first SLS cameras they were using on different places, shows, and other people were using them. When they got some kind of anomaly, they were designed to show a stick figure and nothing else, which meant they were going, wow, I've got a stick figure. You have, because the software was designed to make it look like a stick figure, which is totally fake.
Right. If something is even in somewhat of a form of a person, it's gonna put a stick figure in there. Doorways.
Yeah.
They're boxed, and the software is gonna be like, oh hey, this looks like a Head and Shoulders to me, so here you go.
Yeah, we've had it a couple of times, and the thing is, I've used one, and you can obviously say the word because you can point it at a person and you'll get a figure. It's when you use one and you can't you don't have the time to kind of debunk it or anything. That's when they're not much use because you can't tell what's going on. So it's not real proper evidence, is it? I get exactly.
I think if you got that equipment and you do use that equipment, then you've also got to try to debunk whatever might have caused that. So then, if that's picked something, you can rationally say, right, so it's not a doorway because we've debunked it. There's no door there possibly. What else could it have been that could have caused the stick figure to arise? Now, if there's nothing there that could possibly have made it arise, and there's a stick figure there, then obviously it's picked up on something. That's what I personally think.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, it's your intuition as well. You need to use that so that you're in an area that has the denser energy or, as you were saying, leading you towards that horrible smell and things.
The best equipment I could ever really have is your eyes, ears, nose. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're the ones that aren't going to do you wrong unless somebody is cooking a cake around the corner. You know what I mean? Then But obviously you debunk that as well.
It's like a lot of, I think, especially that sometimes, and I know it's other people don't get this, is the full skeptics of the world who I've said before, who for whatever reason just live a normal life, but see and hear these things occasionally and just go, I mean, Martin, work with somebody and they just go, oh, it's just a load of rubbish. That's fine. Okay, it's a load of rubbish to them, but to everybody else that wants to know, you've got to understand that there's a lot goes on, and a lot of people have things happen to them, and only just once. And I know, obviously, having done that little bit of research with you, Joe, with the before the show started with the number 7, that's quite a thing, but it's quite a personal thing, which is why I asked you if it was all right to ask you about that before the show started. Right. Yeah, because there's quite a lot to it.
So if you want to talk about that, we can talk about it.
If it's all right with everybody else, you want to, because obviously these guys are intrigued, and it really intrigued me. Yeah.
All right. So now I'm not the only one who has experienced this, and I will say that people that I've talked to who don't know other investigators who've run into this, all their stories, they're all the same. How it starts, what's going on. So it is interesting. So for me, this happened around 2011, I think it was, or 2012. I joined a team, and we went and investigated a another team member's home. And even previous to that, we did do another investigation. It was nothing big. It's just for fun, but we kept getting 7 coming through the spirit box. I'm not big on the spirit box either, but then it was happening again at another location, and I remember saying, "What is it with 7? Why are we getting 7 all the time? Like, what's going on with this?" But then it's like, oh, we're I lived at the time. The number 7 is in everybody's phone number in that area. So kind of like whatever. But we investigated this team member's home. And I mean, I was impressed. We were getting intelligent responses through the spirit box. And again, I am not big on the spirit box. But I mean, we ask a question and I mean, boom, we get an answer quick. So we turn on the spirit box and the guy who, before the 2 team members moved into the home, there were 2 other guys that lived there. They were brothers. One of the brothers, his name is Joe. Well, this guy, Joe, was getting Social Security disability. He ended up dying in the home, and his body laid in the living room for quite some time. His brother was collecting his Social Security checks, is what he was doing. Finally, he got caught. So anyhow, we're there. We turn on the spirit box. We're like, hey, who's here? And something says, it's Joe.
Okay,
that's cool. So we asked other questions and we were getting answers, but we kept getting the number 7. So we asked, well, one of the team members asked, and they asked the question wrong, but asked how many people are in the house or in the room or whatever. And it said 7. So I had to think about it. I'm like, well, hey, he was meaning how many spirits were in the house, but he asked the question wrong. But there is 7 people in this house. Okay, cool. One of the female investigators then asked, what's your story? And something came through. It sounded a little aggravated, and it said "F you."
Okay.
We're like, okay. So we go to Post Town Elementary School, and we kept getting 7 there. John and I, we went into a certain part of the school, and he wanted to do a spirit box session. Cool. And John had asked, "What is your name?" Well, at the time, we didn't catch it. We didn't hear it, but he gave us a name. And then John asked the question again. We knew something came through. We weren't sure what it was, so we asked again. And then it said demon, which we didn't catch at that time either, because it just kind of happened a little too fast.
Yeah.
So that team consists of the 2 leads, which were very new in the paranormal, were boyfriend and girlfriend. I kind of broke my rule. I usually don't like to get involved in teams, where there's a couple. Yeah. I try to stay away from that because a lot of times that doesn't work out. And I don't want to be caught up in the middle of it. And that's kind of what was going on. I was starting to see that the relationship was headed in a bad direction. And I'm like, and so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go on my own. I'm gonna walk away from this. I ended up investigating, which is really weird. A friend of mine that I went to school with, we were best friends at one point in elementary school and junior high. He had a drug addiction, and he ended up getting clean. He went to rehab, but then went back. Unfortunately, he started hanging out with the same group of people he had been hanging out while he was doing heroin. But he ended up dying in his dad's basement with a needle in his arm. He didn't get heroin; he got something else, which killed him. He had owned a home. He didn't die in his home, but he had owned a home, and his sister ended up getting the house. And for years, she was telling me about the things that were going on. There was nothing I could do about it because I wasn't in Michigan at the time. I was in Virginia and then to Tennessee. So I'm originally from Michigan. So, she's telling me, these things that are going on. I was like, well, I mean, if I was up there, I would help.
Yeah.
Well, ended up moving back to Michigan. And of course, the team that I had talked about got hooked up with them. I went to the house by myself, though, to investigate. And they were telling me what's going on. Now, she had roommates there as well. And they were telling me things that were going on. But there were a lot of other things that went on that they did not tell me about until after the fact. So I went into the house. It was my friend's sister and her daughter. And like the house felt fine. It felt welcoming, warming. I sat on the couch. They sat on the couch, and we talked about what was going on. And they had asked, "Hey, can we investigate with you?" And I'm like, usually I don't want the clients to investigate with me, but they're living there.
Yeah, so
And
they've got
they're
right to as well.
right. So maybe perhaps maybe this could have something to do with one of them. But everything that she was telling me that was going on, this friend of mine, he liked to joke around and play around, but he was never violent, never ever violent. He was never like mean to anybody. If he played a joke, it wasn't a harmful joke. But what she was telling me, because she was thinking maybe it was her brother, I'm like, this does not sound like him at all. Like, this does not sound like. And she said the same thing. She's like, yeah, I know, but maybe it is. But anyhow, I investigated, and this thing had no issues of letting me know it was there. The first few minutes, 5 minutes, we go into the basement, and I got growled at. Both of us got growled at, and it was distinct. And when I reviewed to listen, it sounded completely different. And I had different recorders going on. One recorder, which was a good recorder, that growl sounded so distant you could barely hear it. On another recorder, it sounded like somebody was dragging a box and dropped it. And then on my video camera, you couldn't hear it at all. So I thought, okay, that's a red flag. That's weird. So we went upstairs to the second floor to one of the bedrooms, and we were investigating. And all the roommates, they were not there. They had left. All the doors were locked. And she has bells on the doors. So if somebody comes in or tries to come in, the bells are going to ring. I started hearing somebody walk down on the first floor. It's wood floor. And it sounded heavy. And I'm like, is somebody here? And they're like, no, nobody's here. I'm like, that's got to be somebody who's here. And she's like, no, all the doors are locked. Nobody's here. It's just us. Well, then you can hear it come up the stairs. So I went out of the room and I started to look, and I'm like, okay. Now, when we were in the basement, I actually left this out. This thing called out my kid's name, my now ex-wife's name, her kid's name.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's threatening.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So after that investigation, I went over everything. I was trying to figure out what was going on. Now, at that point in time, too, now I'm getting really sick. I was already having respiratory issues. I had a bird, an African gray bird that I've always wanted. Come to find out, I was deathly allergic to her dander, and that was messing me up, giving me asthma attacks and things like that. But from there, my health started to decline. That had nothing to do with having that bird. And I started having like the same dream for like 2 weeks over and over again. It was always the same dream. And one night I woke up out of that dream, and I don't know what it was. I'm like, I am missing something. Something is going on and I am missing it. So I went back to previous investigations that I had done while I was in Michigan. And the school, when I said that we heard that there was a name, and then it said demon. When I went back and listened, boom, um, I heard what sounded to me like Asmodeus. And I'm like, okay. So I went and I looked it up, and what my buddy's sister was telling me is basically exactly what this certain entity does. Basically, it is a relationship destroyer. And I was just like, what are the odds? So continue to do research, keeping a close eye on what's going on in my life. And I'm just watching everything fall apart. But going back and listening, and this is how I feel about it, and I could be wrong, but I feel like to a point that I was kind of set up. Like something in its own way led me to that house.
Yep, I've had that situation.
To, for whatever reason, get to me. I am not a threat to anything. Like, I am not like an exorcist or anything like that. I say I'm not a paranormal exterminator. That's not what I am. I am not a threat. So I started talking to other people in the world of demonology and things like that, and they're like, "Dude, you're in trouble." One friend, her name is Paula. I won't get into details on that whole story, but she actually tried to help. And then there was something that happened to me and him we didn't know about, but something affected him the same way that it did me. And the outcome was the same. Now we're both alive, obviously, but I mean that's just weird. And we didn't tell one another any of this until I think it was probably a couple months later when I said, "Hey, you know, sorry I haven't talked to you in a while, but here's what happened." And she's like, "Are you kidding me? This is what happened, to my husband." And it was like almost the same. So separation happened with my kids' mother and I was staying with some friends. And they were kind of like weary of the whole thing with the whole seven thing. And what it was when I would lay down to sleep, or if I was doing something, I would hear what sounded like my kids' mother saying, "Hey, Joe." And I'm like, I'm losing my mind. I have to be going crazy. And I had told my friends about this who I was staying with, and they're like, "Dude, you're under a lot of stress, man. You haven't been sleeping well. Maybe it's your mind." When I would go to sleep, I would hear, "Hey, Joe, wake up." Sound like my kids' mother. And I'm like, "Oh, this is I'm losing my mind." Well, they were watching TV, and I was sitting on the couch with them watching TV, and I heard, "Hey, Joe." And I'm like, I'm just going to ignore that. But I looked over at my buddy and his wife, and they looked at me, and I'm like, "Did you guys hear that?" And they said, "Yeah." What was that? And I said, "You tell me what that was." That freaked them out. And then they started hearing growling and other things in the basement. And of course, they had somebody come out there to see if it was an animal. There was no traces of animal, anything like that. But they were getting growled at, which that went away. So it took a while. I took a hiatus from the paranormal and then came back. And it's, But then I hear other people, because I had, mentioned something about it, and then I have other people messaging me, hey, somebody told me that you had this run-in with this entity that calls itself Seven. I'm like, okay, well, before I even say anything, what is going on? And it's always marriage falling apart, sicknesses, animals getting sick. How did it start? Well, it was coming through the spirit box at first, now EVPs, and followed up with these other things, marriage falling apart and such. Everybody that I've talked to who have encountered this thing, that's exactly what happens. I'm like, hey, do you know so and so? They're like, no, I have no idea who that is. But I'd always ask if they, who knows who, because maybe they're because a lot of people they like to believe that they're having an experience, and sometimes they want to believe that they're having the same experience as other people, which is a really weird thing in the paranormal. It's just like when somebody posts a picture and says it's a ghost, and clearly it's not a ghost, like pareidolia. And you explain it, they get upset, and a lot of that is people.
Hi there, I do apologise about that. Facebook's just given me some issues, so some people haven't been able to communicate upon the live feed.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I noticed it.
I do apologise about that. No,
I had a similar situation like that when I was younger, where I was led to the house and everything was set up for me to walk in, and it took me months to get rid of what was there with me after I walked out. So I can truly understand.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. I know it's quite painful painful, but it's quite a thing to sort of tell and talk about. And I know there's bits more to it and stuff, but yeah.
And like I was saying, other people have experienced it, and everything is in line with what they're saying. Comparing it to others as well as me. And it's funny because a lot of people, like, I'll tell people who I'm investigating with, or they know, and then it'll come through, and I'm like, we're just gonna ignore that. We're just gonna ignore that. Wow. Its name really isn't Seven for whatever reason. That's just what it likes to call itself. Sometimes it'll call itself Paul, but yeah, I try to avoid that. But what I did was, you can look at it as this was a horrible, negative event that had happened, and it was, but. And I don't mean to sound like a total jerk about it, but at the time, being separated and then, divorce happening and stuff like that, that was like the worst thing in the world, for me at that point in time. But looking back on it, it was probably the best thing for me to happen.
It's like years ago. I'm not sure when it was, but Jim Carrey did a movie called Seven. I believe was it 7 or 13, something like that.
No, there was 37, I think.
Well, there was this other movie. I think Brad Pitt was in it, and
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
But now, when you look at the number, now people, when they think of the number 7, they think, this is an angelical number, good luck, a heavenly number. But when you look at the Old Testament, 7 actually meant chaos and destruction.
Oh man.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's right. It's funny, but you do hear a lot of people talk about them. I don't know if Martin can remember. We know a lady who actually keeps telling us you look at your watch, but she keeps seeing a time.
Oh yeah.
And I know people. I've had periods where I've woken up and just bolt like I'm awake, and it's been a particular time. And it's like, and it happens every so often. I'm thinking that's dead weird, because rather than being like 2:30 or 1 o'clock or something. It's a really, really odd time. It's very odd. And so I get that about, you know, the whole, whether something's communicating or whether something's, it's a thing. Obviously, in your case with the number 7, it's quite a, do you know what I mean? It's kind of, I was going to say it's haunted you. That's probably the worst word to use. But yeah, no, having sort of read and heard you recount that before, it's like, it's very powerful, and you can tell when you're telling it, absolutely, it's powerful and how it affects you. I just wanted anybody else that's listening and stuff, these guys, to hear how, and they do know, you know, some people, because they watch the TV programs and they're obviously done as a bit of entertainment, and they sort of laugh it off. Oh, did you see so and so? And oh, yeah, that thing made them jump and stuff, and they ran like hell and that. But there's a serious side to it. There's an absolute terrifying serious side to it that people.
I totally agree. I don't know if you remember Wendy, but when I first came on the scene, like public face, and I started doing my events and things like that, I had like, what was it, 2-3 months that I was waking up between 2 and 4, and I just couldn't get my head around it. I was just continuously, every single day without fail, I'd wake up between those times, and it was bothering me because it's like I was getting that broken sleep all the time, even when I had to go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm still waking up between those times, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? And I had to ask a load of people to see if I needed help, if there was something like spiritual attachment that's waking me up and stuff like that. Have you ever had like a spiritual attachment while you've been from investigations? And if so, have you dealt with these situations as well?
So the first time I went to Post Town to investigate, something followed me home, and honestly, I just kind of ignored it, and it just went away. And that's usually the case with a lot of attachments like that. Is that over time? Sorry, guys, I'm dealing with a head cold and choke cold. If you just ignore it, usually it'll just go away. And that's how I deal with it. Now, with the whole thing with 7, that's a little different. That thing just like, it's like, go away. Yeah, I mean, that's how I deal. Now, for other people, I mean, I guess it just depends on the attachment. I have done attachment cases. And a lot of those type of attachment cases, they're like, oh, you know, it's just like, you know, this small child, you know, that's just following around. It's attached to me. Turns out to be not. It's something completely different, in which then they need to have somebody, you know, get rid of that for them. Like I said, I am not an exterminator. I don't run around the paranormal field pretending to be something I am not. I would much rather have somebody who has experience deal with those things. I'll investigate. I'll research. Anything else, I'm not running around going, the power of Christ compels you. Sorry, that's not me.
It's like when I first started doing my events and everything, I was able to pick up on stuff, but I would never class myself as a psychic. And people used to say, "Go on, you can do your readings. You can do your readings." It's like, no, I'm not a psychic. I'm not doing it. I'm not able to do it. You know what I mean? So I don't class myself as that sort of thing. But as I think, as a progression within the paranormal field carries up, like grows, you grow within yourself, and I think you become more open. So, have you found that your senses are becoming more open because you've been in the field so long as well?
Because of my experiences, especially in the house that I grew up in, if I go into a location, I may not say it out loud, but I'm definitely thinking it. I will know if there's something demonic or not. Like I'm not psychic. I don't have any kind of special abilities. But when you've encountered something like that, you know.
Yeah, you know when you walk in and it's that shadow feeling, isn't it? It's hard to explain.
Yeah,
Right.
I find it's like a dead weight oppressive when you walk into somewhere like that.
different moods and things. Yeah, I think I'd be the same. I always said, you guys know, I always said the same as Joe, that don't believe I've got any particular kind of. But then I do wonder sometimes, and I listen to you, it's the same, Joe, that whether there's something that tunes you in and that, you know, that kind of being able, I don't know whether it's being able to read what they call read the room or stuff, but whether it's, you know, whether there is something that we all have that we open up to a little bit. And I don't know, sometimes I think to myself, something's a little bit not right and off. And now being into, you know, getting into this and this, that, and the other, and learning to sort of trust your intuition a little bit better, it does open your eyes a little bit. And obviously not like Wendy, you know, different, but I think there's something that you learn.
I believe while I was off, I overheard that you got children, did you say?
Yeah.
Do they have, are they into the paranormal? Do you like bring them into what you do, or do you just like keep it separate?
So, my kids have experienced stuff. A place that we had lived in, my daughter, it was weird. My daughter, she came to me and she says, Uncle Russie was here. And I look over at her. Now, Russie, or as we called him, Little Russ, he was a younger brother of mine who passed away when he was 13.
Oh,
She had no idea who he was, and we actually never even told her anything about him, to be honest. Well, we were supposed to tell her. You know, she's like 4 years old. So, you know, but he passed away long before she was born anyways. But, and I just kind of looked at her, and I'm like, you mean Uncle James? She's like, nope. Uncle Sam? Nope. Name another uncle? She's like, I saw Uncle Russie.
Wow.
Like, okay. But we also were, I don't honestly think it was him, but we were hearing these kids running up and down our stairs, which the neighbors next to us, they had no kids. The house or the place behind us was empty. And it was kind of bizarre. And we talked to the neighbor about that, and they're like, we've been hearing it, you know, for a long time. We've been here longer than you, and told us kind of what they were experiencing. Both of my kids have probably my son's first experience, which I wish it never happened, because we were already struggling with him trying to sleep on his own in his own room in his own bed. Mm-hmm. And we were getting to that point to where he would now sleep in his own bed. Well, basically what happened was he was kind of traumatized. He had his tonsils removed. Okay. And after that, he would not sleep in his own bed by himself. He only did come to find out that that does happen to kids, that they won't sleep in their own beds after having their tonsils removed. So we had him in his room, and we're in our bed, and all of a sudden we hear one of my son's toys go off. It was an Noah's Ark boat that would just wave back and forth and play music. And we're thinking, he's up, he's playing. So my son's like, oh, my toy's going off, you know, I didn't touch it or whatever. So the mother goes in there, and she goes to turn it off. There's no damn batteries in it. She's like, there's no batteries in here. I'm like,
that to me, I'd be like, right, Wendy mine, Bob mine, equipment out, let's get this shit going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had that happen to me. It was an alarm clock that my mother-in-law bought my eldest son now, but it had this distinct laugh, and I can remember we were all carrying on in the house, and then we heard this laugh coming from upstairs. Well, we all stopped, and I sent Will up the stairs to find out what was going on, as you do. And he brought it down, and there was no batteries in it, and no one had been near it at all to set it off.
But now both of my kids are adults now, and my son, he'll go with me from time to time on investigations. He's like me. He's just like fearless, whatever, very laid
Get in
back.
there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we really don't watch. I mean, we used to back in like 2006 or whatever it was, when like Ghost Hunters was on TV. But my kids, they knew that I was investigating the paranormal for a very long time, long before the television shows. But my son, he's kind of just like me when it comes to the paranormal. Just go and just whatever, just laid back. We don't get all crazy and things like that. We don't get freaked out. From time to time, we might get excited about something, but no, we're very just reserved. But recently, something that I was thinking about. We watch some of these television shows. I mean, like I said, I don't really watch them, but you see certain individuals get freaked out, want to run away, and then you have people who are watching it, going, "Why are they doing this? If that's all they're going to do is get freaked out and run away, we're supposed to be there to go check it out. And when something happens, you go to it." But then I see the same people, they get a break and get on a TV show, and they do the exact same thing that they complain about. It's like, come on, guys, really?
It's for views, mate. It's for views. It's for view ratings. It's for the ratings at the end of the day. When they're on the telly, it's for the ratings, because ratings bring in the dollar.
Yeah, that's what you said, isn't it, Joe?
You know,
Which I suppose we get, but it doesn't. I just think it doesn't, because it's become massive in the media. It's not very healthy for the for all of us that want to take it seriously. Because like at work, Martin knows, you've just got that. Oh, well, I don't watch it because it's just all rubbish, and you're like, okay, well, that was dead flippant. Never mind. But yeah, it doesn't help. It's nice, because a lot of people just go and take it at face value. Oh, it's got to be real, and this, that, and the other, and stuff. And and you think, not everything you come across.
What people got to also understand is that when you go out on investigations, you could be out in the cold, raining. You've gone out on this investigation and you've not picked nothing up. And there are investigations that people do go out on investigations and you don't get what I mean. But you've always had people that expect you every time you go out, you're gonna get that. You're gonna get something, and it's like, no, it don't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
Sometimes all hell breaks loose around you.
Yeah, there's a lady who's posted they're off to East. I don't know if you know East Drive in the UK, Joe. I know it's really famous. There's a lady going to investigate there that we all know. I forgot for her name.
She's part of the LSS family.
She said to her, she hadn't made the comment about whether I get anything or not, and I did put to her, I do know 2 or 3 people that's been there and spent the night and got nothing, but that's just the way it is. I mean, we've talked about it before, and that like over places that have been overdone, sort of thing. I don't know how you feel about that, Joe. If you get places, I don't suppose it doesn't sound like the sort of thing that you sort of do though, but you hear about a place so many times. I was trying to think of somewhere in America that I know. There's the music place. I've got the name of it now.
Bobby Mackey's. I have not been there. I
plan
on going there.
But it just seems to be so much done. Is it overdone? Do you know what I mean? Are you going to get anything? Yeah, Bobby Mackey's, isn't it? Yeah.
So
it makes you wonder.
I do believe that when you have people coming into a location all the time.
Yeah,
they're all asking the same questions. They're all setting out, including me, setting up the same equipment. It's the same thing over and over again. Maybe it's not that, their energy or whatever is tired. They're probably just bored. They're probably like, come on. I've been asked this how many times? Another pet peeve of mine is, people say, hey, I have this device in my hand. It can hear you. So if you talk into it, it's like, no, what I do is when I go to a location and I know it's been investigated to death, I'm just like, here we go. Here, I'm going to set that there. And you're not dumb. You know what it is.
Yeah.
I try not to talk to whatever's there. Like
And
it doesn't
I think-
have a clue.
And I think what people sometimes forget, these investigators forget, that these spirits were human.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I hate, it's one of my pet peeves is disrespect. Because everybody, including spirit, deserves respect. And that's just my from the psychic medium side of it. I think
true. Hi, Liz.
Hi. And I think that's one of the important things when you see all these people antagonizing spirit. And
I would agree, because sometimes when you go to a place, it's somebody's home, and it's still somebody's home if they're still there, and it's an intelligent haunting. If they're still there, they're obviously, you shouldn't be disrespectful.
All right. So think about this. I don't provoke. Sometimes I'll push, but even just walking into a location, that could be a form of disrespect and provoking.
Yeah.
You are invading something else's space.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine you just sitting on your couch watching TV, and then all of a sudden, a bunch of people come through your door with a bunch of equipment, throwing their stuff around, unloading things, laughing, being loud. And you're like, what are you doing here? I live here. This is my place. You would be upset. And some people, may take that as provoking and want to do something about it. So when it comes to when people talk about provoking and things like that, it's like, you can provoke in other ways and not mean to. You may ask a certain question that may be offensive, and that can be taken as something like being provoked. Like, hey, why did you kill this person? And then that spirit, like, really, you're going to ask me that? How dare you?
Yeah.
It's a good thought, that, actually. Yeah, because you do wonder sometimes if it's, out of the realms of TV and just investigating. It does make you wonder sometimes if you could just go to a place and just say, out loud or something. I really don't hope you mind. I hope you don't mind me being here, and I've just come to spend some time, and just literally sit there and just maybe, I don't know, anything, read a book, listen to some music and stuff. And it makes you wonder if you just leave, like you said, the recorder going from start to finish, and just see if you get something, because this whatever's around you takes you as respectful and thinks, even if it's just noises, even if it's a voice or something, or it might be it's quite an interesting thing to think about, actually, and try and do. Like you say, in the realms of films and stuff, documentaries, whatever, it doesn't make for, but there might be something worth trying sometime at a place. I've never really thought about it before. Yeah.
And then just to bring it back real quick, something that was brought up about going to places and not getting anything. I have been to some of the most popular haunted locations as the United States has to offer. And I've been to these places quite a few times, and I might get lucky and get a couple of things, but I walk out of there getting absolutely nothing. And it's not because I didn't do anything wrong. That is just the nature of the beast. But then you see people who go to these places, big channels on YouTube, go to these places, and it's just off the wall, like crazy. And it's like, something's not right here.
It's funny,
so true.
It's funny you should say that, because throughout this, I was going to ask you if, and it's only because I've been watching it quite a lot, if you're aware of, and I've forgotten the guy's name now, but it's Carmel, Maine, which should be enough if you know it to spring it to mind for you. A place called Carmel, Maine.
It
I've
rings
heard
a
of
bell.
them.
I haven't been there.
Yeah, with the gentleman that's I believe bought the farm with the in mind of actually investigating, and he's got quite a lot of interesting stuff. And he actually did. I'm not sure. I'm going from memory here. He did a while back invite a bunch of paranormal investigators to go. You know, because a lot of people have gone, "Wow, you've got some amazing stuff." You know, how real is it? And he invented it. He actually got quite a few people in there who got a lot of stuff. I mean, to be fair, I think personally when I watched it, he got far too many people because they were all trampling over each other. So, you know, maybe spiritually as well as. But I don't know if it's one you knew at all, because if you remember that, I don't know how much it interests you to have a look. So if you look at some of the stuff that he's got, it's like, I keep thinking, wow, this really does warrant some serious investigation, because some of the stuff that he claims, I'll go like that, you know, to have got is absolutely amazing. Some stunning stuff. So just made me think of it when you mentioned it. But,
that's it. I'm going to have to be bringing it to an end soon. I just want to say, like, thank you for coming on. If we can talk a bit about your Harrisville, like the Conjuring House, and like where people can find it, and like so they can watch it and stuff. That'd be great. That'd be great as well.
So let's see, the Conjuring House, the Real Conjuring House, the Harrisville Haunting, the Real Conjuring House.
Yeah.
How the heck can I forget the name of the thing that was a part of? Anyways, so as of right now, it's only available in North America. That's going to change. We are working. There's some things that we need to do to get it out to the rest of the world.
Yeah, because I've been trying to get it from over here in the UK, but I've still been able to get it.
I'll message you guys in a little bit.
That would be great.
But it's on Amazon Prime. It's on Apple TV. It's on the Google Play Store. It's on cable networks such as like Comcast, Cox Cable, Dish Network, Vimeo, or whatever it's called. It's available on a wide variety of streaming services. We are in somewhat of pre-production / limbo for the next documentary we know we're going to do. Right now, it is the financial, and being that Matt is in the Marines and he has to go. He's going to be deployed and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of have to put it on hold a little bit, but that will only make the next documentary that much better. And you guys go check out on YouTube, Devil's Hours Production. That's Matt's channel. My channel is like crazy all over the place. It's Entity7Paranormal.Joe Vitale. No, it's not very popular. It's a small channel, but the reason for that being is I don't fake anything. It's all real. So a lot of people get bored
about real paranormal investigators. They won't do it.
So yeah, I'm really nothing else to plug. Right now, just waiting it out and planning on doing the next documentary.
Well, that'd be totally great. I also want to say that you've joined. That I'll announce that you've joined the Power family as well, which is pretty cool to have you part. To have you part of the Power family, as Matt has joined as well. Matt is a part of the Power Unity family. We strongly believe in it, that everybody should support, encourage, promote, and to always be there for each other. So, I do appreciate that you've stuck by us and you've joined the family. Thank you very much for doing that. I've just downloaded the graphic for the Harrisville Haunting. So when people go on Amazon, if you want to see which one it is, it's this one here. So I hope you can have a look at it and give it a rating and enjoy it. Thank you.
Awesome.
That'd be great. And thank you for everybody for joining in tonight.
Yeah, it's been
thank you, Joe.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It was fun.